This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this wild allegation from Representative Congressman Madison Cawthorn. He was on a podcast about maybe like a week ago or something, and he was asked about, is DC really like the House of Cards? And he had some interesting things to say, which people have been questioning because he's like a Republican, and he's like, what are you alleging that some other people are doing? So apparently McCarthy and other people had to are encouraged to kind of talk to him about this, and don't, whatever crazy experiences that he's having in DC, to just, I guess, throw out allegations out there, at least so broadly, because people are questioning other Republicans, and people like, are you a part of this sort of debauchery? So I'm going to play that clip that's circulating around, because it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, and at the same time, I kind of don't doubt it, because I've heard some wacky things. So I'll wait till we get there to go more into it. But it's pretty amazing. What he says happens in DC. I also want to touch a little bit on the Will Smith thing. Not going to go into a lot today. We already talked about a lot yesterday, and this was all the rage yesterday. But I will say that people are jumping more on the "it was staged" plan. I had a TikTok live, and man, people were getting all kinds of views on TikTok about it, and I had thousands of people watching, talking about the subject, even though I was late to comparatively to how many people were already talking about it. People were just jumping live in comments to give their feedback on what they thought. And so there's so many people like, it's staged. And so you guys, if you watched yesterday, my thought about it was there was no reason to embarrass. Neither of them looked good after that situation. Not Will, not Jada, not Chris. There was a rumor going on around that Chris Rock had apologized, and I had thought that at the time when I did my live on TikTok the other day, but apparently that was fake news, and I fell victim to that. And you know what? My sister was one who read that, and she told me about it, and then I went and I did my live. So shame on me, shame on her, but shame on people, and whoever made that such an elaborate sort of apology, whatever. So from my understanding, I don't believe that Chris Rock has apologized, and he should. In my opinion, comedy sometimes is offensive. It just is. There are some stuff that I think can cross the line, but you kind of need your jesters in the world, But Will Smith has apparently apologized, which we noted yesterday he did not do when he gave his acceptance speech. So I don't know if they're trying to round that out to come to an end, but people are already making songs. I saw somebody draw Chris Rock as his character from Madagascar, and so he was quoting it, and then you had Oscar, the character from Shark Tale, with Will Smith. I mean, people are just doing the most with this, remaking songs from the Fresh Prince intro. And I just saw a video where someone had the Aladdin "Never Had a Friend Like Me," but instead of "never had a," it was like, "keep your my wife's name out your mouth in line with the rhythm and the beat and everything." I'm like, people are not ready to let this go. So if Will Smith didn't want him and Jada to be the butt of a joke, he should have reacted differently than what he did. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this on here or if I had said this in conversation, but Jada just could have took that, and they could have just been a little upset, whatever. He could have reveled in his moment with his award. And then later she could have gone on Red Table Talk and talked about how she didn't like how that happened, that would have went viral or whatever, etc. So there's definitely a different way that they could have handled that whole ordeal. But people have been like saying that Pfizer sponsored it and they're doing a drug for alopecia. And so that was something a verified checkmark user said. So that's what people's conspiracies are going through now. Again, I don't know about that, because I think still you'd have to bank on a lot of people being involved with that. And just because Pfizer sponsors something doesn't mean that there's a grand conspiracy there, because Pfizer sponsors just about everything. We gave them an ungodly amount of money with the vaccines, and they sponsor like all the news programs and networks and everywhere. And Oscars obviously doesn't get as many eyes as it used to, and it keeps declining. But if you're a big corporation with all these people who are going to be up there saying, hey, I boosted blah blah blah, it's not that weird that Pfizer hosted the Oscars. And just Will Smith doesn't need like their cash if they did some kind of deal on the side like that. I mean, unless he got like a substantial amount of stock or something like that. So I still think it was seemed pretty authentic to me. You guys can let me know in the comments. And I did find a funny video that I'm gonna show you guys with Trump talking about Will smacking someone back in the day. And just FYI, Facebook, YouTube, this is not a live recording of Trump, so you do not have to feel the need to just ban my live stream. FYI, I know they don't like to see the president's face at all in real time. Just putting it out there to the listening ears so they don't just ban everything. Before we get to everything, I do want to encourage you guys to go blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website, check out different articles. I did drop one last night regarding the Don't Say Gay bill, which of course is not a Don't Say Gay bill, it's a parental rights and education bill. But specifically, I talked about Disney and how they have decided to come out against it, and we talked about that yesterday on the show. But there's good like sources in there, so people can be like, oh, we don't need a bill like this, it's so ridiculous. There's links in there that link to other situations with parents talking about their ordeals, and Kenny keeps track of the Disney situation. I'm thinking about making like a pretty complex video about it, but please check out the articles that I've written on the website. Please check out different merchandise that I have. I did drop, these the other day, like XX Woman, kind of like X-Men. That's kind of like the logo from like the 90s cartoon there a little bit. But it's not hard, it's XX chromosomes, woman. Got this cool little gender skirt as well. I do have also a dress that I, made as well. And the XX Club got those in hoodies and crop hoodies and shirt dresses and t-shirts and all kinds of other stuff. So got some new merch you guys can check out at the store. Also got still the classic stuff like the goat hoodie. That's my by far my most popular thing that I made. I just ordered myself a t-shirt though. The hoodie is uber comfortable. I do have it in different colors, in pink and red and navy and black, if you guys want to get those in different colors. But man, it does really pop crisp and nice on the white. But I understand people are like, I have kids. I'm like, I got you. That's why I made it in different colors. But I did just order myself a t-shirt so I can have the t-shirt too as it gets a little warmer. But the hoodie is uber comfortable, guys. It really is. So please check out the different stuff on the store. I do want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I am in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It does not work like that. But I'm just appreciative of using the space, but there's no one to cry to. I'm the boss here. So you guys can just like go buy a black tea mug and just like cry your little heart out into that. Maybe that can catch your tears, because I will not be there. So let's get to the funny and go back down memory lane of Donald Trump. Because apparently Will had slapped someone on the red carpet before, after he got kissed on the lips. Now, FYI, I do think that people are arguing, like, are there moments where violence is sort of called for, and over a joke, and especially in a setting like that, that was not appropriate for Will Smith. That's my opinion. There's other people who feel like Chris got what he deserved. I don't agree with that. And that joke, to me, it wasn't very funny. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was very creative or anything like that. But it was just a joke, and it didn't warrant all of what happened that night. But there, I think there are moments when you may say that, hey, you got to do something to be more chivalrous. I don't know if that's considering all the drama with the Will Smith family. Chivalry seems a little dead in that family or whatever. But this incident, if someone basically Trump is commenting on what I would say is a sexual assault. I don't care if someone says it was meant to be funny, but Trump was like, yeah, he should have did what he did.
Will Smith is a really great guy, and I love what he did to the wise guy that kissed him, I think, on the lips, and Will looked at him and smacked him. It was really great. Other people should do that. I look at this wacko Sacha Baron Cohen, who's got no talent whatsoever, going around doing all sorts of things and really abusing people, and somebody ought to whack him and he'll never do it again. So Will Smith, I congratulate you. That was great. I only wish you hit him harder.
Yeah, so that's an old tweet. There's an account that tweets nothing but old like Trump tweets and stuff. And so there's a saying on Twitter and social media that there's always a tweet for everything. Like if you go back and find a Trump tweet, there's always something that will relate to the future or the present, something that will be ironic, something that was like him telling the future. There's always just a tweet for something. And so people went back and found that regarding Will Smith slapping someone else. So I thought that was interesting. And man, if you know what, when I was in I was in middle school, and it wasn't a kid. Someone did try to kiss me, I think, but I like hit them. I think that was maybe in elementary or something. Someone dared somebody to come up and slap me. Oh my gosh, I like Hulk smash the crap out of his back. And I think someone dared him, and it was like, obviously you should go up and slap someone who's meant to be like disrespectful. And I just, and I've always been a big gal. So, and then the teacher saw, like, I think the student counselor or whatever saw it, and they brought him to the office, and they're like, are you guys fighting because you secretly like each other? And I just looked at her like, do you smoke crack? Like, I was not nice when she had that allegation, but yeah, man, oh my gosh. I don't think I've physically been in any altercation probably since middle school, but I mean, if you look at me, I don't think I'm someone that you would want to mess with. So I haven't had to be involved in like high school fights and stuff like that. People would not try me. I know people try other people, but they would not try me. Okay. If people say crazy stuff online, but I don't think they would say that to my face. Anyway, let's get to this Madison Cawthorn story, because it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. I will not leave you hanging anymore. Let's just jump right to it. So he was on a podcast talking about DC and what's it really like, and we'll just go from there.
To get serious.
Yes, I am.
With Kevin Spacey, and I forget who else was in it. But anyway,
Really well done show.
Very well done
Very
show.
well done show.
But it was so dirty, and it was about this congressman who was Kevin Spacey, who was, I think it was minority or majority whip.
Yep.
What was it? Yeah. And so anyway, very, very powerful guy. And it was just kind of like his secret life of all this corruption and power and money and perversion, and it was just dirty. How much, in your opinion, because you've been behind the veil, is this a fictitious show, or is this more closer to like a documentary? Is it that bad?
So I heard a former president that we had in the 90s was asked the question about this. And he gave an answer that I thought was so true. And he said, the only thing that's not accurate in that show is that you could never get a piece of legislation about education passed that quickly.
And everything else is good.
Aside from that, I mean, the sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, with the average age of probably 60 or 70, and I look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics, guys that, then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, well, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? Yeah. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Yeah. Or the fact that, there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove, addiction in our country. And then you watch them do, a key bump of cocaine right in front of you. And it's like, wow, this is wild.
Yeah, that is wild. So, that's quite a thing to like lay out on a podcast, I think. Just kind of I haven't met Madison. Maybe we can get him on to talk about this more. I don't know. This is so wild. This is so wild. So House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, this is according to the New York Post, will have a word with freshman Rep. Madison Cawthorn after he made comments on a podcast last week that fellow GOP lawmaker said depicted them as sex-crazed party animals. I don't think he did say people he looked up to. He did not specifically say that they were Republicans or exclusively Republicans. So let's put that out there too, because there could be some people who are of the other variety engaged in this stuff, but I'm not making the allegation that he's not talking about any Republicans. A number of Republicans at closed-door conference meeting Tuesday sounded off to McCarthy about claims by Cawthorn that some of his colleagues had invited him to orgies and snorted lines of cocaine in front of him. According to Politico, Rep. Steve Womack, one of the lawmakers who reportedly rose to speak, said he was getting grilled by media members about Cawthorn's claims of drug use and debauchery. Womack reminded his caucus colleagues that many of them hit the sack at 9 p.m. I do believe that, man. There's a lot of people who are up there and still use fax machines and flip phones before criticizing Cawthorn for lumping them all together with his accusations of crazy behavior. Now, just because you use a fax phone doesn't mean you don't know what cocaine and and orgies are. I guess that makes you more protected with everyone not whipping out their cell phones to record it. Is that something you would send over fax? But I get their point. They just feel like they're just a little too seasoned, I guess, to be involved in those sort of things. And there's probably plenty of people who are kind of worn out and wouldn't participate in that kind of stuff. Cawthorn, 26, likened Capitol Hill to the corrupt, sexually charged environment portrayed in Netflix series House of Cards. I think the rest of the article is just basically quoting the rest of what we just watched. So yeah, apparently they're gonna have a word with him. Again, I'm a little surprised that he's young and he's a this is like his first term. There's people really trying to push him out and stop him from being able to run again. He was a nice kid. I got to meet him. The Brighter Michigan PAC actually had an event and he was the main speaker. And so I did get to meet Madison, and this is wild. Now, could he? Some people are saying he needs to name names, and I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath with maybe that kind of happening. But even mentioning this out loud, I'd be unless people like kind of throw him under the bus, like that's a wild sort of conspiracy thing. I think people might come pretty darn hard for him. There's already people coming hard for him, but I have never been. I've never worked in DC. I've gone there. I know people who've worked in there, who've lived there, etc. I can say that I don't find it hard to believe, even with like some like local stuff. I've heard stories. Now I've never. I don't think anyone would think to invite me to something like that. Period. Anyway, people even find it uncomfortable when you don't even drink. Like, because I think he said that people have this kind of stuff and then they go and they blackmail you and the media will blackmail you and other kind of stuff. And I think people really like people who will get tipsy and they'll drink and then they'll start spilling tea. And that's what Project Veritas does. Like they just go out, hang out at a bar, they just go out, hang in a restaurant, and people just spill their guts, and they're undercover recording all kinds of like things. Like, hey, you want to go to Applebee's? And then they just get all these state secrets or these company secrets, and people just open up. And I've heard of people spilling a lot of things while they were like intoxicated. So I don't understand why so many people, particularly in politics, love to drink like that. I don't get it. But when people know that you're always going to be like sober minded, I think people get a little uncomfortable with you being around, knowing that other people are going to lose their inhibitions. But I can say I've heard some really grisly debauchery kind of stories that he's describing while just kind of being on the scene and involved in politics. So I don't find it extraordinarily far-fetched is what I'm saying. Will he name names? I don't think so. House of Cards, I did watch it for the most part until like I didn't see the last season. Of course, like Kevin Spacey had his allegations and Netflix like killed him off, and Claire was like the main character, and I read what was going to happen, so I'm like, this sounds like it's just trash, which the kind of writing quality content of the show had dramatically went down in my opinion anyway, and I just hated Claire anyway. I really didn't want to see her be president and all this other kind of stuff anyway, so it just irked my soul. But overall, it was entertaining, especially at first. But that's some wild stuff. You guys are super quiet in the comments today. Oh, that is a crazy story. That is a crazy, and not because I think it would be crazy that it happens. As a matter of fact, when we mentioned this several times, Florida, the Ron DeSantis, who he ran against, was Andrew Gillum. Andrew Gillum, which the media thought he was a big darling, even though he had like charges of corruption, and he tried to just play the race card, and people tried to call Ron DeSantis a racist, and especially for raising the points or bringing up any of this stuff at all with some of his record. But they wanted him to be the black governor of Florida, and they were uplifting him. I mean, they'd uplift him anyway because he's a Democrat, but he's also a black guy too. And so Ron DeSantis, of course, ended up winning, and God bless Ron DeSantis. Florida dodged a bullet, because not only is Ron DeSantis like the best governor in America, but Gillum got caught in a hotel room, like naked with at least a man. Maybe it was two, but it was at least a man, like naked, and there was like coke or some kind of drugs there. So then he came out as bisexual, as if we, spoiler alert, like we didn't need one, sir. Like you didn't need to come out with an announcement regarding that and the kind of activities that you do in your own time. But that's the kind of stuff that I guess if he was governor, that would have been happening behind closed doors, maybe, if he was still that crazy to do that while in that position. I don't know if that's just a habit that you just pick up within like a couple of months. I mean, I don't know how hard he took not being the governor, but I would say there was probably some debauchery or leading up to such things. So again, Florida dodged a bullet. So you know what kind of crazy stuff people are doing behind closed doors, especially people with power and influence who can hide that kind of stuff. But I do think it is important to not throw natured other Republicans under the bus. So people asking him to clarify or be more specific, or at least not putting it out there to lump so many people together, because the media would hear such a thing and be like, oh yeah, let me jump on that. But there was a couple articles about that, but I don't see that being like huge news right now. And again, that's a pretty wild story. So I don't know, maybe people know that there's too many closets. I mean, skeletons on both sides of the aisle as far as what's in their closet. So that's something, absolutely something to admit to. And what a bold thing to ask a young man. Like, I'm assuming that no one assumed that he would go on podcast and bring that up at all. But if anyone, assuming we're going to take Madison at his word that people were inviting him to orgy parties and doing cocaine, that's a pretty bold thing to just invite a young man to, especially he just got there. So what do they think would happen? What do they think he'd get wrapped up in? What do they think that would accomplish? So it's just really creepy. Really, really creepy. Just in general, just really, really creepy, whether it was in politics or not. Whether it was in politics or not. Just a little update on we talked yesterday at length about the Don't Say Gay bill, and which is really called the Parental Rights and Education Bill. And I pointed out that Disney didn't even have the guts to actually call it by its name, which here's their statement, the Walt Disney statement. They just call it the Don't Say Gay bill and the technical name of the HB 1557, but they don't actually refer to it as a Parental Rights and Education Bill. And again, I did write an article about that on blacktnews.com. You guys can check that out and please share that around. But I have seen parents who are pretty outraged about it, whether it's on Twitter and Facebook and other places. And people have been saying that they need to boycott, or people need to boycott, or people have been canceling Disney Plus. It seems like a lot of people are saying that they won't go to the parks. And of course, I think that would hurt like Florida, the people there in Florida, and that headquarters and that bottom line. I mean, I think Disney Plus is their like bread and their butter. So if people did want to actually do something, I would think that would be the route to go. But I don't know if I necessarily would be that person like, you must boycott it. Like if you watch the show, you know that I've had very strong feelings about the direction of where Disney's been going for a while. And that they've made it blatantly clear that they resent people like you and I with a conservative bent. And I mean, just something like we mentioned last week, how they changed the Punisher and his iconic like skull logo because there were too many people who were associating it with Blue Lives Matter. So you change your own character's logo. It's not like someone like took it out officially. It's just people doing stuff online, and you're like, oh no, Frank Castle. We don't want people to associate that with the police, which is of course dumb for a lot of reasons, considering also like background of Frank Castle. But they're like, we gotta change his logo, his iconic logo. I have a coffee mug. As a matter of fact, that's my profile picture on my TikTok, is me holding the Punisher mug that I have and raising it up, just kind of smiling. And I get compliments on that mug. It's a cool mug. It's a cool logo. The Thomas Jane Punisher film was really good. It's probably that was pre-Marvel Studios, but we've seen that a lot in my family. I watched it like maybe 2 weeks ago when I was over at my parents' house, but I don't know, that may be like my mom would just do laundry and put on the Punisher. Either that or Blade 2. Like so I've seen that film maybe more than any other Marvel film. So it's just bizarre to me. But that's not the only thing that they've done. It's a long laundry list between like Marvel and Disney, etc. What they've done to irritate me to the point where I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to support. So I, like so many people, obviously went to go see the last Spider-Man film. I didn't. I didn't watch the Hawkeye thing. I didn't watch Winter Soldier. I didn't plan on seeing Love and Thunder anyway, but not watching Mandalorian, Obi-Wan. You know, I didn't watch Encanto. I did do a parody, but I, I've decided to slice that out of my life, at least as of right now. I don't want to be the one to say that, hey, you guys have to do that or anything like that. But um and I'm like the only one in my house who's like kind of follow that lead. They ask like, are you gonna, you sure you're still not gonna see Spider-Man? I'm like, I'm sure. And they're like, it's kind of like Sony though, so are you gonna see it? I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna see it. So I didn't end up seeing it. Um but if they don't feel it some kind of way, at least with the outrage, with, I don't know, whether you got to protest, send them dozens of letters or etc., or just let the outrage be known online to kind of make them go reverse with their course. But they're saying they want to strike down legislation like this in the courts, and they're going to support groups who want to achieve that, and state organizations who want to achieve that. So I don't know how much Disney is, besides like producing content that helps that sort of cause. I don't know what they're going to do beyond that besides pumping into money. But we're talking about them pledging to pump in dollars to crazy activists. And they're workers who work in Disney have probably not read the bill, probably couldn't be bothered to read the 7 pages, and that's why they feel confident that they can just be like, I'm so hurt about this don't say gay bill, when it doesn't even like say anything about don't say gay. It's all propaganda. But Walt Disney it's a company worth billions upon billions of dollars, and they know better. If someone legal people have read it and they decided to craft that statement anyway. So if they're going to fund activists to try to overturn parental rights and education bills, which say, hey, I do not want you to teach this stuff to my kids at like the tender age of like 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't think that really should be in schools, period. But the bill is so neutral and soft, really. There shouldn't be any controversy about it. So the fact, and it's popular when people actually look at the language of the bill. Most people agree with it. But the fact that they're still like, no, we want to fund people who want to shut this down, that's taking a really, really nasty line drawing a really nasty line in the sand as far as where they want to go. So parents really need to stand up against this, because they are a huge consumer of the Disney product. Obviously, maybe they feel like there's enough grown-up Disney lovers to sustain them, and they can and they'll still give that stuff to their kids, and there's going to be enough people who are casual consumers of the news and aren't aware of Disney taking this sort of stand, and they'll still make all their money. Like, I don't think that we're going to bankrupt Disney. I'm not under that sort of disillusion or something, but I do encourage people to at least let them know in some regard that they're upset by this, and maybe enough to let them say, you know what, this was a mistake. We want to remain neutral. But this is declaring war, in my opinion, on parents. And I shared the story yesterday of the Little Johns in Florida. Their 13-year-old daughter. The school had a secret like meetings behind the back, their parents' back, with like, I think the principal, another like counselor or something, and some person they had never met, like a social worker or something. And it was a 6-page gender ideology or gender affirming plan, which included asking the child like, hey, what bathroom do you want to use, and which room do you want to stay in during overnight trips. So if you're like at a school camp and you're a girl and you're like, but you're like, no, I'm a boy, you can go sleep with the boys. Or what if it's a boy and he's like, you know what, I'm a girl, and they're bunking with the girls. Are parents okay with that? That the schools encourage things like that? I wouldn't be. I would be. Just like, sit all the other stuff aside, because there's more and it's worse. But I would be livid about that. Like, you encourage my child to go sleep in the boys' camping grounds? Or you encouraged a boy to go sleep with the girls? And you wanted to keep it a secret? And so the staff and other people were instructed to refer to the child by whatever name or gender that she wanted or whatever. But when they talked to the parents about their daughter, they had to pretend like everything was fine and dandy. So I guess they could dead name her and misgender the daughter, like behind her back or to the parents' face, because they were all in on trying to hide this. So there's a really, it's not just the fact that they were trying to, in their view, protect the child's privacy. They were open to deceiving the parents. So that's the kind of stuff that was happening in Florida, not in California. The stuff I'm sure going on in California, and I know it's going in California. We've talked about stuff going on in California. It's probably also happening other places around the country as well. But we're talking about in Florida where they signed the bill. So people who want to pretend like this just popped out of thin air and it's just some religious nutbags who are like, you know what, we want to make sure that we can't say gay. Well, it doesn't even say that in the bill. It says, talks about sexual orientation. So if you had a child who identifies as super gay for some reason at 5 years old, and the staff was like, well, that's not good, and they decided that they were going to have secret meetings and have gender conversion therapy or whatever on the child, and they conspired and they were going to keep that from the parent, how would you feel about that? You'd probably not like it, correct? Well, guess what? The bill forbids something like that too. It's very neutral, but people don't want you to know that because they want you to be outraged. And so Disney has pledged that they are going to fund people who would be against this bill. And only, I don't know, psychopaths was the first word that came to mind. But if you're against the parental rights and education bill to the point where you want to strike this down and fight in the courts, that is some really, 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 really left-wing wackadoodle groups that Disney is saying that they're going to support and that they're going to fund. So they want to fund and energize and empower people who want to take away the power of the parents, who want to empower schools to be really, really activist educators to hide information from parents. The Little Johns, the school, they drove a wedge between their daughter and the parents. They encourage secrecy, like, you don't have to tell them. You can keep this all and then they had to go weeks trying to figure out what all that they did behind the backs of the parents. Even if you feel like a child should have some bit of privacy, why do you feel the need to protect the deception? That I don't understand, especially in an age where schools, the incidents have happened and schools have covered them up. Your child may not necessarily be what's in the best interest of the school. Have you thought about that? The parent is invested in their child. I'm not saying there aren't that schools and administrators, whatever, may not be invested in that child, but they're not invested in that child like the parent is invested in the well-being of that child. They're going to be with that child for it's a long period of time, it's a short span of time, but comparatively to what's going to happen in the rest of that child's life, they don't have long-term investment, but they can do permanent, irreversible damage if you're not careful. Someone said they've lost all respect for Disney. Same here. So I think parents have to take a stand and let them know, we do not appreciate this. If the least you can do is tweet at them or send them an email or like hashtag Disney versus parents, Disney against parents or something. At least, at the very least, do that. As a matter of fact, where's that? I did post a graphic yesterday. I want to make sure I got my hashtag right that I did. If people want to build upon that, I'm going to make more memes. I'm only one person. I need to hire a meme army. Support blacktnews.com. So it's kind of still hard for me to see because my live button is over it. Disney's war on parents. That's what it says. Hashtag Disney's war on parents. And you got Captain America. So it looks like we're coming for your children. Yep. Looks like it. So let them know. Let them know. But if you're going to go the extra mile and cancel that Disney Plus or not go see the latest film, if something like that tanks, a big movie like that, that's hard on the studio. They have like tons of money, of course, but they pump hundreds of millions in these films, hoping that they'll make a billion at least dollars. So you gotta let them know. So the last thing I want to look at is this video by Jon Stewart, and so people were talking about it, and actually have not. I started to watch it, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch it live, and we're gonna have a like kind of a blind react here. I know it's cringe, apparently. At least I hope it's cringe because it's gonna be good content if it's cringe. But Jon Stewart talking about the problem with white people.
And thus, the problem with white people. Hold on. I'm just gonna stop for a second and pose so you can get your memes out. Okay, there we go. Get a good picture for your clickbaits. For how
It's funny that they know that these headlines and stuff is like clickbait. And like everyone is aware of why you would make stuff like this, why a lot of people are talking about this stuff, because they do realize there's this toxic sort of culture where, like, I don't know, other white people be like, yes, I'm so awful, we're so awful, and be like, yes, we I don't understand it. I think it was Jimmy Fallon who mentioned something about white people's like population was declining, or because of how the trend was, and the audience like erupted in applause, and Jimmy seemed like, that's weird. And in his face, he didn't say anything, I think, in response to it, but people noticed the response. I think Bill Maher like talked about how weird it was, how much white people appear to hate themselves right now. And I think I mentioned this yesterday. I have a TikTok friend who she's a Michigander too. She was a raging leftist, and she just got tired of pretending that she hated herself and that she was a racist, and being so negative and mean to people. And then she also realized that when she debated conservative or something, they had like facts and data and all kinds of like intelligent things to back up the conversation, and she had just like rhetoric that she was just programmed to say, things that she in her heart did not even believe were true. So she ended up switching, and she like confessed to like her boyfriend, and she's married to him now, so I don't know if they were engaged at the time or whatever, but he was just, after he heard out, he was like, huh, so does that mean we're like Trump supporters now? And so I guess they at the end decided to vote for Trump and stuff. But I was relieved to know that there are people out there who knew that they were lying about all this stuff, because I'm like, I guess at least you guys were just liars, to lying to yourself, and you didn't go all the way crazy. I mean, it's crazy to lie to themselves to that degree, but at least there was like a beacon of sanity in some of these people going, you don't actually believe all this stuff. You don't actually believe all this stuff. So let's continue on with Jon Stewart, who's aware that this is clickbaity. Of course, people on the right would talk about it. Here I am. Congratulations.
ever sincerely we want to reckon and listen. The truth is, America has always prioritized white comfort over black survival. Black people have had to fight so hard for equality.
So I do want to point out, obviously, that there were lots of white people who have stood with black people at the expense of their careers or their lives in some cases. During Black History Month, I told a story about Henry Box Brown, maybe that was his name. But it was a black man who escaped slavery because he had some people mail him in a box. The story is so interesting, and for a lot of different reasons. I find it humorous. It's one of my like more obscure, like favorite Black history facts and stories. But he was going around like traveling with his box, talking about like, "Hey, I survived this way," and you got like people like Frederick Douglass, like, dude, I wish you like would not be going around saying all this stuff. And so there, he was helped by, I think, a free black man and then a white guy. And the white guy tried to like do the same thing again. He got caught, and and it did not go well for him. So that's just an example. There's people who put their reputations on the line, their lives on the line, in order to do the right thing. And of course, many Americans died in the Civil War. And of course, the Civil War was about also, mostly keeping the country together. But eventually, the war got so bloody and awful. And there's tons of abolitionists who wanted slavery to end, period. But the war needed to kind of be about something more for people to even continue on. And there were people who were always fighting on the sidelines trying to end slavery. And it was a hotly contested issue. Obviously, there was a lot of economic incentives and other things that people thought for wanting to keep their property, as they called it, or called them, human beings. And there were always people who wanted to stand against that. So there's some people who've always wanted to have white comfort. True. Minimum wage, for example, is rooted in eugenics, and it is about white comfort. The idea of a livable wage is rooted in elitism and about like white, like elitist sort of comfort, not just particularly white. Eugenics is more than just a racial issue. There's white groups in there that they don't like either, from kind of the elite of that time, dealing with like the early 1900s, mid 1900s as well. But you get my drift. There's plenty of people who a lot of policies and decisions have been made for their comfort, but it's not specifically just white comfort. And there's definitely white people who've allowed themselves to get uncomfortable for the benefit of Black Americans. So Jon Stewart's not a moron, but he's aware of the clickbait. Let's go on.
That they've been irreparably set back in the pursuit of equity. And any real attempt to...
Equity and equality are not the same. Equity and equality are not the same. Equality would be like, hey, we're all equal under the eyes of the law. We all have equal opportunity, equal rights, and so on. Equity is a situation where, well, this is recent, so we can say something along the lines of like what's going on with the Supreme Court situation, where Biden is like, we need a Black woman to be on the court. And people are like, oh, yes, that's good, because we need America to look like America, the court to look like America. I'm like, that's not your job so much as to, like, you know, look at the law and interpret the law, but okay. And I do find it interesting that they didn't look at the court and was like, we need to look like everyone. So screw those Asians. Like, what? Like, Biden, he didn't just discriminate against white people. That's how people just look at it. But it's like, you discriminated against all men when you made that decision, and you also discriminated against Latinos, you discriminated against Asians. So, you know, Black men, there's a lot of people you discriminated against in order to create your equity moment. Now, if he thought Ketanji was the best person for the job, which, going over her record, which we've talked quite a bit about, I don't think that's the case. And I don't know, I'm not even optimistic to really cross my fingers. But I don't want them to confirm her based on her record, with a couple different things. The fact that she didn't want to define the pornography thing was weird enough, which, by the way, there was some stuff that the White House left out. So the Republicans are looking more into that in her record, including something that happened not too recently with her sentencing. But the whole, I don't want to even say what a woman was. Like, dude, like, you know, like, I'm not a biologist. So you know better. You just don't want to admit it because of your ideology. Okay, we got it. We know what kind of judge you're going to be. And there's other things with her records as well. But those are the things that are like really highlighted. The fact that she had cases that went up and got kicked back down. Her decisions got overturned. It begs the question, like, are you really an activist judge? And I think that's legit what she is. But they had to be divisive and racist and discriminate against people to get that sort of equity result that they wanted. So equity and equality are not really the same thing. And so when people say equity, it's a red flag. I don't like it. I don't want to fight for equity. I want to fight for equality.
Repair a ton of that damage. Reparation.
Oh gosh. I do have an article on blackteennews.com. I know we've not gotten far in this video. It's only like 2 minutes long. I do have an article on blackteennews.com about reparations. If Democrats are really, really concerned about reparations, they could always pay Because like if you question like who's going to pay for reparations, it's like there's so many people who weren't here, their ancestors weren't here during the time of slavery, that people immigrated over. So you can't just like have, why should the whole country have to pay? Because that, if it's something on America, that if you're a taxpayer, you're going to pay for that, whether you're black or white or whatever. If it's something that all white people have to pay, why should all white people have to pay that? Because some of their ancestors weren't even here yet. Some of their ancestors fought and died in Civil War, etc. So that's not really fair. So you could just kind of look at it like historically and look at like who, like beyond like a racial thing, like what kind of party was like responsible and for that at the time? Oh, it was like Democrats, right? Okay. So of course, those people are dead. You know, you don't. So if we need to punish someone, can't we like punish people who choose to associate with that party? I think so. And if you're like, well, who's going to receive that stuff? So obviously, people who are not Democrats, who are the descendants of slaves. So that becomes more fiscally reasonable, right? So I think if you are a Democrat, if they and it's Democrats who want these reparations. So if you are a Democrat and you want reparations, I think it is only reasonable that you guys pony up the dough and you pay black Republicans. That seems fair. And you know, there's so few of us, we could probably do it, financially do it. Now, I don't need your money, but apparently you really, 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 really want to give it to me. So you can feel free to do that if you want to. If you want reparations so bad, then pay it. Then pay it. Then pay. And you don't have to wait for someone to pass a bill. You can just do it. You can cash at me right now. You can go to blacktnews.com, hit the donate button if you want to. If you want reparations so darn bad, Jon Stewart. And you know what's the crazy thing about people like him who have like a crap ton of money? You could just do it. No one has to write you a bill, Jon Stewart. You could just write the check right now. Write the check.
That's off white people's "they're coming for our shit" alarm, which we would know ourselves had we actually been listening.
My feeling is white people have a very, very serious problem, and they should start thinking about what they can do about it. Take me out of it.
Understood.
Okay, I don't even know what to say about the last point. Maybe it goes back to the reaffirm, like there's a lot of like anti-racist kind of stuff by Ibrahim Kendi and other folks that are just like, racism is your problem, don't bother like the black people with it, you guys figure it out, etc. There's been so many cringe videos of just like anti-whiteness, like the problem with white people. The Washington Post did a video, and I did a reaction video to it some time ago. That's worth looking at, because the sort of white guilt that they heap upon each other is just really bizarre and insane. And why go out your way to hate yourself so much over stuff that you know that you didn't personally do? Like that, it just boggles my mind. But I don't know how many people are really being honest about how they feel about their role in all that and their guilt. Is it something that they just constantly have to get up and like, I don't know, like, you know, the people who like flog themselves, like, I am white, I am bad, you know, every day. Is it something that you like religiously look forward to, like happy, like it's time to whip myself? Or is it like, oh shoot, I gotta pay tribute to the angry society of white guilt? I hope enough people can just kind of be like, you know what, I'm sick of all this racial division, and I just want to live my life. I just want to take care of my family. I don't want, you know, milk to be this expensive and the gas to be this high. And can we just figure out like a way to be more productive and not be distracted by all this nonsense? And you may be questioning like, well, why are you talking about this if you don't want people to be distracted by the nonsense? Because culture wars are still important, and we have to point out this foolishness. But it would be better if people just kind of realized how silly this all was and just said, you know what, we are human beings, and there's a lot of opportunity in America for so many different people of so many different races, and we all need to come together and make the best of this nation for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities. And if we can just make it more accessible for all people and create a climate of opportunity and success, then you don't need to Frankenstein monsters like equity everywhere and chop off someone else's legs so you guys can stand equally. That's what equity is. Equity is rigging the game against someone else so you can win. The desired outcome can happen. Someone said they're proud of who you are. Like, don't apologize, especially like it's nothing that you can help. Like I've given like a speech or two before about being, because some people are like, don't say Black American, just say American. And I say I like saying Black American, not because I relate so much to like sort of Black culture or anything today, or anything of like my own regard or my own pride and kind of who I am. But when I look at a Black history, which is just American history, I'm like, well, it's really cool to know that I'm part of this legacy of this, huge underdog story. And you look at the attitudes that people had and the inspiration and the hope that they had, even though they had been through the worst of the worst, that they could still be so optimistic about building a better tomorrow and deciding to be better and not better, which I did make a shirt on my website for that. I just wish that more people could really look at history and be inspired instead of forcing themselves to be outraged about it. Because what right do you have to feel outraged about those things? What right do you have? It's not like you can force yourself into feeling that sort of pain and it's not really generational trauma. You may traumatize each other every generation, but that's not something that you just inherently feel like through the DNA or something. And if you have generational trauma from slavery, someone has abused you. Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was an aunt, maybe it was I don't know, a professor, maybe it was yourself. But you can just look around and be grateful for where you are. I know things are kind of bleaker than they have been with gas prices and inflation and Biden in office and all this other kind of stuff, but we live in a great country, and I think it is strong enough to outlast Biden. For us to survive, we just got to hold on a bit. But the way that it gets just destroyed is if we allow ourselves to destroy it with our division. And this is very organized. It's very structured. And I've talked about this book, Color, Communism, Common Sense, before. Why Manning Johnson, where they would use racial grievances and stuff to promote communism. And if you look at BLM and other stuff, the book is like prophetic almost to like how you look at the world today and kind of see the agenda behind all this division with the racism. And it's really meant to break the country. And I think we got to be smart enough to not fall for it and to push back against this madness. I don't want white people to feel like they can't speak and talk and just be like so involved with their guilt. For what? For what? What good will it do? Just be a good person. Raise good people. Make good decisions for yourself and your community. And that goes for everyone. Like a lot of issues that people drag into like racial issues and stuff and in the Black community and so on, a lot of that is driven by a lot of individual decisions. I'm not saying there aren't maybe starting points where people kind of push people to make bad decisions, etc. Again, like I mentioned, like eugenics and different policies. that have been used throughout our country to drive certain kind of results. But you do have the power to stand up and change things, and someone has to be brave enough to say, I'm going to be the one to make that change. So I just encourage everyone to be better people. That's how we fix the nation, instead of collectively being like. And here's another thing: they want to talk about white guilt and they want to talk about systemic racism, but people don't. But they openly say, like, I don't want to talk about individual racism. They just want to look at the whole system, because they want to bring the system down. The flawed system they see is the United States of America. And a lot of our values, they want to relate to whiteness, because they want to totally flip the country on its head. That's why they don't want to talk about you as an individual need to be a better person, and you as an individual need to make better decisions. They're like, you need to apologize and for your whiteness, your collective whiteness, and the guilt of what society's done at large, and what's white people, blah blah blah. It's not about what are you doing as an individual. Are you not actually guilty of racism? They don't want to believe that. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But we need to talk about how we individually can make better decisions about our lives. And a lot of that starts with being more informed about how we vote and making better chances at the ballot boxes. People talk about Black people can't, and this is like I know this is like my third closing, but I am a preacher. People talk about Black people aren't able to be racist because we don't have institutional power, which is crazy to me, because obviously there's a lot of Black people who've been in charge in different cities and etc. And people even say that about people who are famous and rich and celebrities and in very high authority power situations, etc. But the Black community, if it would just leverage the vote, you could shift an entire election. That is power. So if you choose not to wield it, whose fault is that? You have all the power in the world, if you care to wake up and use it. Anyway, that is the show for today. Thank you guys for listening. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. Like the article I mentioned, like the one on reparation. I wrote that some time ago. I wrote the article about Florida and Disney and their reaction to the Don't Say Gay bill, which of course parental rights and education bill. Please check out different merchandise that I have, like the Be Better Not Bitter shirt that I mentioned. I got the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racist stuff on the back. Of course, got the cool goat hoodies, and got the shirt, got them in different colors and stuff. You Are Not That Special. And of course, I got some female gender stuff that I dropped over the weekend. So I hope you guys check out the new content, the new merchandise and stuff that I have on the website. Also want to encourage you guys to also check out different books that I've written. Some of you have checked it out, have told me that your kids have liked it, that you personally liked it, and have reviewed some stuff. I have 15 published books out. It's from like children to new adults. Super Kid is one of my stories that I love and adore, loosely based around some stories about my dad when he was a kid he had an overactive imagination. These are not political books, but they do have good conservative, wholesome values in there. And I keep telling you guys need to help out and support conservative content, or just content of people who don't want to who don't aggressively hate you. And I don't aggressively hate you. So consider going to blacktnews.com, hitting that merchandise button, and you'll see a banner that'll take you to my book website. All my stuff is on Amazon. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. I'll talk about Chris Wallace and something crazy he said over the weekend about why he's decided to leave Fox News. And I guess he just at the end of the day thought it was propaganda, but I'm like, you're going to CNN though, bro. You're going to CNN. So we'll have an interesting show for you guys tomorrow. God bless.